Monday opened up a wild spree of free agent moves. The Packers made two of their own. Let's talk about a crazy free agent tampering period and the newest members of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Kesha.
Welcome in another episode of Sounds Gouda. Thank you, everyone, for coming back and taking a listen to us. I have one of your two co-hosts. My name is Rob Ralph. Next to me is my best friend, Jordan Olson. It is Tuesday morning, the day after the free agency or the tampering period began. My gosh, was it crazy out of the gates. A lot of different moves that happened. Just a few of them. Davante Adams, 2 years, $46 million, going to the Los Angeles Rams to shoot it with Matthew Stafford. I'm actually going to be really curious to see how that goes. I think that makes sense, and I think that the Rams got a really good wide receiver, even for how old he is. Another one, a couple other here too. Paulson Adebo, 3 years, $54 million, that ended up going to the Giants. I know that was one that Jordan and I circled and were hoping for. The NFC North rivals and big competition over there, but they ended up getting DJ Reed for 3 years, $48 million to the Lions. I absolutely hated to see that. And then the Bears, the Bears continue to add to their offensive line. They did end up getting another one of our darlings from the Atlanta Falcons in center Drew Dahlman. They also got Deo Adingbo for 3 years and $48 million. But Jordan, overall, it's always a crazy day. I feel like it started like Sunday night on X and headed into Monday for a lot more of that legal tampering stuff started to happen. But overall, give us a quick rundown just of your feelings of where some of the people went and how your day was overall for free agency.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Obviously, overall, I'm excited that we have two new Packers on the roster, but I'm trying to think if I had to describe free agency so far in one word, what that would be for me. And, I guess I would say surprised a little bit. I think that as Packers fans, media, even listening to Goody, we kind of hyped ourselves in on this idea of going all in for one or two dudes. We've got Josh Jacobs out there advocating. We've got rumors from agents saying that we're going to be going after guys like DJ Reed and some of the more well-known names in this market. But then, things explode. Money starts getting thrown around like crazy. I have a strong feeling the Packers maybe were very highly interested in Paulson Adebo, but then when he goes for $18 million average annual value, that's a lot of money to be thrown around. Just a little bit surprised. I wouldn't go as far as to say that I'm disappointed because I do think that the Packers are a better team today than they were before free agency started. We're going to talk about Aaron Banks and Nate Hobbs. But kind of, I know you were throwing around the money side. Yeah, there's a lot of money thrown around. Like, what is your initial reaction or your one word gut feeling to free agency for the Packers yesterday?
Depth, experience, positional versatility.
Those are four words, I think, Rob.
Yeah. So you always tell me the one word, and I'll add a couple more on top of it. I mean, for like Milton Williams to the Patriots, just went out of their bag to be able to pay that. I get it. Like, he's extremely good defensive tackle pass rusher. The amount of money that people are willing to spend. The Packers did take kind of a slower approach, quote unquote, right? Like, it didn't happen within the first 2-3 hours. It was 4 or 5 hours. It was, and I thought it was pretty savvy moves, right? So overall, I thought that just like you, they got better. So I'm pretty good.
And better is good, right? Let's just acknowledge the fact that we did not get a wide receiver. We can grieve that a little bit. And then we're going to go out and we're going to talk about Aaron Banks to start and what that means for this offensive line and this Green Bay Packers football team. But, Davante immediately on Sunday night was a little bit of a gut punch. But, Davante did exactly what he said he was going to do. He said he wanted to play on the West Coast for a contending team. A lot of people thought that might be the Chargers. The Rams were certainly in play. And, there was a lot of people that thought it was posturing and they wanted the Packers to, come and get him. He posted his green and gold shoe, post on Instagram. But Davante did what he said he was going to do, and he got paid right around the mark that we thought he was going to get paid. And I think that would have been a fair contract for the Packers to upgrade their offense and their wide receiver room at about $23 million per year, essentially just like a 1-year guarantee on that too. And then the other guy, really the only other guy that I wanted was Chris Godwin, and he went right in that same ballpark. He got a contract 3 years, $22 million a year. But the Bucs went out and they were able to retain him. And, I definitely give players credit when they stay right where they've been their entire football career. So, the Packers never really had a chance to probably negotiate with him once the Bucs found some money in the couch cushion. And I don't really know where the Bucs found their money from. They only had like $18 million in projected cap savings or free agent money to spend. But as we know, the cap can be a little bit fake. And then I guess just one last thing. I mean, what are your feelings about DK, Rob, getting $150 million from the Steelers after they went out and traded a second round pick for him? Is he worth that kind of cash? Would you have done that move?
No, I don't think so. Not for that, and Steelers typically too, right? Like their MO is to play like the Packers, right? They're not quite as heavy into the free agency and spending a ton of money. But, I know that they needed a wide receiver, but I just thought that was a little bit too rich for what he would bring and how we would utilize him in this offense. Now that's just me being rational, Now if we would have gotten DK, for sure, I would have been happy, but I thought it would have been a little bit of an overpay if we would have got him at that. So good for DK. I'm still hearing that Rodgers might go to the Steelers, right? So Packers and Steelers maybe in Ireland, and that'd be again a good combo for Rodgers. Rodgers and Mike Tomlin have a history and have always wanted to play together, but feels like a lot of drama in that room with Tomlin, Rodgers, Pickens, and DK Metcalf. So that'll be interesting to watch this year.
I've seen all the memes of like guys, like two guys with Pickens and DK's head superimposed on them, just like in brawls.
Yeah.
It will be entertaining, but yeah, that's my feeling. It's an overpay for DK. I think it would have strapped the Packers eventually. It'd have been fun in 25 and 26 to go all in per se, but I don't think that contract is going to age well. The compensation itself, I would have given up a second round pick to get DK, but we got to remember too, and people are going to be upset about that. Well, the Packers, why didn't they give up a second round pick? Well, they could have. They might have had that deal on the table, but the Steelers still had a pick that was 3 positions better than the Packers, and they probably think the Steelers are going to finish worse than I guess that the future compensation doesn't matter, but it was still a better pick than the Packers could offer second rounder for second rounder. So, all right, enough about the rest of the league. Let's talk about our newest Green Bay Packers, and let's start with Aaron Banks. So, we signed Aaron Banks, one of the top guards on the market. According to Ian Rappaport, I thought this was very interesting, the wording in his post. He phrased him as the top guard on the market, which, if you look at PFF, he was ranked the 72nd best prospect in free agency this year. But yeah, 4 years, $77 million, about 19.25 average annual value. I still haven't seen any guaranteed money details on this contract. Have you, Rob?
No, haven't seen any yet. No.
Yeah. So the Packers hardly ever go out and give more than like a year and a half of guaranteed money. So at best, I would imagine that this is a firm 2-year commitment with Aaron Banks. And if it doesn't work out, we can get rid of the back half, at least the last 2 years of this, heavy contract for a guard. But, we saw it last year. This is kind of the going rate for a starting guard on the market. I'm just frankly surprised that the Packers went out and did the Billy Turner again. I mean, Billy Turner was a great player for us, but we're so good at drafting and developing, and I think that says a lot about where the Packers view the draft this year and how they want to address the draft, maybe not having to feel like they need to take an offensive lineman in the first 3 picks, which frees up the capability to do other things like address edge rusher, which we haven't touched yet, as of March at 7:50 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what are your thoughts on Aaron Banks, Rob? Tell us what you think.
He's a people mover. Brian Gutekunst was watching the Philadelphia Eagles playoff game like us all and wondering the same thing when Elton Jenkins went out. I mean, it's basically it. And he's a Myers replacement, right? So if that is truly what I think Tom Silverstein ended up reporting, and then when it ended up saying coming back and saying that wasn't true from his source, but it does make sense. Move Jenkins into center, Banks into left guard. You would think left guard, right? That's where he's played and where he's done pretty well. And then you have Morgan there, right guard, right? You have Tom and then Walker there on your right and left tackles respectively. And then if any injuries, then you have a really solid Sean Ryan that can come in there too. So immediately, to me, it's okay, your depth seems really good right there too. He is massive. So I don't know if this was on point, but 6'6", 325 pounds. Again, too, coming back to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their center, Juergens, is a little bit smaller, but the rest of their the line, including the tackles, are absolutely behemoths. So maybe just taking a little bit of page out of that. I think he'd be really good in that gap type of run blocking too that the Packers ran a lot of last year. And a couple of notes here too. He doesn't get flagged as much, right? So that definitely helps the Packers. We all know that they struggled with that, and he hasn't dealt with too many injuries throughout his tenure too. So depth, experience, positional versatility, and too, within the draft, right, really gives you best player available. Doesn't hamstring you to be able to have to pick an offensive lineman and some other spots where you think you can add better talent.
Especially early in his time with the 49ers, they really excelled at that gap run scheme. We saw that the Packers started to lean into that more heavily last year with wanting to be kind of a run-first team. So, Rob, I don't know how this projects back to our idea that we need to maybe open up the run game with the pass again. Looks like we're loading up to make sure that we can run the ball on short downs, which is obviously a good way to win. But his pass blocking in his career has left a little bit to be desired. He had a 60.5 pass grade last year, according to PFF, 54.9 in 2023, but had a solid pass grade of 66.5 in 2022. So I think he's proven at times, and really 2021 was his rookie year. He kind of redshirted that year and really became a starter in 2022. So I think you're taking a guy that you hope is already a good or above average run blocker. And then we've talked about this before with Drew Dahlman as a prospect. Bring a guy in, let the Packers do what they do best with offensive line, and teach them how to be a really good or above average pass blocker as well. I think it's very interesting too. I mentioned Billy Turner, but I saw a post on X. It's his size, his profile, his age, his RAS score, and even his PFF grade from the season when, Billy Turner was with the Broncos, I think, before we signed him. They're carbon copy matches of each other. So, and we saw what Billy Turner did give to us in those 4 years as a Packer. So I like the move overall. One other note, and this is just my own mental gymnastics and exercise, but if the Packers really wanted to improve their offensive line and save money, so Drew Dahlman signed a 3-year, $42 million deal. Why not just give Drew Dahlman those $42 million, insert him at center, and save the $25 million?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. And the best question is I don't know.
I don't know either. I obviously trust the Packers brass. I think that they probably
They probably had this plan of attack, right?
I think so. And a lot of people are like, oh, the Packers fell asleep for the first 5 hours. I can't imagine that's the case.
No.
They knew if they wanted Drew Dahlman, they knew what he was going to go for. And even if they're like, okay, Drew, will give you $45 million because that would have still saved them, $20 million in the end. They clearly were targeting Aaron Banks. They have a plan for his versatility. My guess is maybe Drew Dahlman isn't projected as much to be able to have positional versatility and play those guard positions. He's small. He's 300 pounds, so he probably is a true center only and doesn't give you flexibility and versatility that the Packers really value. So, but I just thought that, for as much as we bang the drum for Drew Dahlman, that idea was interesting because we have so much guard versatility at the moment. But very excited to see what Aaron Banks brings us. Guess says what number he'll wear. I think that he may end up wearing 69 for the Green Bay Packers. 65 is not available, but in college for Notre Dame, he was 69. That number currently is available. So we'll see if the Packers assign him number 69 as we kind of fully move on from David Bakhtiari at this point in time. So let's talk about Nate Hobbs. Honestly, I'm pretty excited about Nate Hobbs, more than I expected to be. And I think like Andy Herman and some of the other guys that I've heard have some initial conversation about, it's like, I don't know why as Packers fans and, podcasters and media, we slept on this move so much for the Packers. I think we kind of got caught up in a few other names out there. But Nate Hobbs becomes a Packer, 4 years, $48 million, $16 million guaranteed. So essentially, again, a 1-year deal. And then let's see what happens if Nate Hobbs fits into this team, into this scheme. He'll remain a Green Bay Packer. So what are your initial thoughts on the Nate Hobbs signing?
Yeah, again, too, experience, depth, positional versatility. This makes all the sense, especially when they're playing a nickel, which they do most of the time, as it is a passing league and you do need 5 defensive backs out there. I think they want to play him outside, but he's known as a true inside merchant. He's really good in your run defense too as well. He's a willing tackler. I think he did end up missing some tackles from last year. I don't have that stat right here on how many he missed, but it gives him a lot of options too, right? Like, so Keyshawn Nixon can play inside. He can play outside. Hobbs can play inside. He can play outside. Bullard can play down inside, right? And back at safety. Chess pieces, too. And when you get in some of those situations, I think like it was the Vikings game is the one that was more clear to me. Maybe even the other one now it's coming back to that Jacksonville Jaguars game where you have to rotate or just make a quick pivot or move because of injuries. This, again, too, lets you be able to make those chess pieces a little bit more strategically and not so you won't get killed by your Jordan Addisons and your Brian Thomas Jr. of the world. So I love it. I think it's very sneaky, and I think you got it for a really good contract. And again, too, just pulling from the Raiders' pool of talent, getting Jacobs last year and now Hobbs, I think it's a very sneaky, underrated type of move where you got really good value. And obviously, the coaching staff probably thinks that he's going to continue to ascend. And I love really what he brings. It brings a little bit of edge, a little bit of attack, and a little bit of grit. And it's pretty good in the coverage game too. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, this must have been the guy that Josh Jacobs was on the phone recruiting. Maybe not the name, like Max Crosby or Davante Adams, some of his other former teammates. But, Nate Hobbs seems like, and I'm going to do something that I don't like to do because I don't like this name thrown around, but I've seen a bunch of dudes on the internet calling this guy a dog, Yes. Throwback to one of our old episodes. I really hate that everybody refers to everybody as a dog, I
want everybody to make a comment right now. If you can, just start with George, such a dog. Below and then state your. Okay.
I hate it that much, but it seems like as an adjective that's used to over describe tough and physical players, right? But I do see that
Jordan hates it.
I do see a tough physical player when I watch the tape with Nate Hobbs, and I haven't watched extensively yet, but I've seen some film on X, put a few clips on YouTube, and I do like his physicality. And, we obviously know the last couple of years of Jaire Alexander. Now we know the all of a sudden there's these rumors out here that maybe Ja hasn't seen his last day in Green Bay.
I will be shocked if Jaire Alexander is still on the team after the draft.
Yeah, we'll see. This isn't about Jaire Alexander, though, but obviously this is the position that we're covering. But unlike Jaire Alexander, right now, the tape I've seen, Nate Hobbs is a willing tackler and somebody that's willing to be physical at the point of attack and attack in the run game. He's had some very good run defense grades. Last year he graded out 62.1 against the run. So he's not afraid to be physical. Some other things I noticed in the tape, he's kind of like a jack of all trades corner. Yeah. I think he does everything well, maybe not anything exceptional great. He probably doesn't have he's a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro in coverage only, but he's a very well-rounded corner. One thing a couple knocks on him, though, is that he's only got 3 career interceptions. So as a 4-year player, he doesn't have the productivity. We know that this team emphasizes the ball. So we'll see if that's contagious as he joins the Green Bay Packers. But he brings other things to the table. And then one side note, he has been injured a little bit. And over the past 3 years, he's played in 35 out of 51 games. And I know we've been very critical of Jaire Alexander. Jaire Alexander's played in 31 out of 51 games. So he's only played in 4 or 5 more games than Jaire Alexander over that period. So let's hope that Nate Hobbs can be healthy. And ultimately, I think that's why you've only got 1 year of guaranteed money in there. You're not tied to him at this point in time long term, unless you restructure him or do something funny there. So overall, we added a 4th corner to the room. I like the flexibility. I think he can play outside. And now you don't have to take corner early in the draft. However, if there is an AZ Thomas or a Trey Amos or somebody there in the late 1st, late 2nd round that you really love, you could really double dip at that position, so to say, now and make that a position of strength moving forward. So we'll see. We'll watch more tape. We'll give you more thoughts on these free agents as we move forward. A couple of other little free agent notes and tidbits that I wanted to note. I find the Khalil Shakur contract to be very interesting because I think that he's a very similar player to Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson. So I guess the going rate for a B tier wide receiver is about 3 years, $60 million right now. So I guess the question we need to start asking ourselves, if we see Romeo healthy throughout this season, are we going to go out and give him a 3-year, $20 million a year contract? What are your thoughts on that, Rob, real quick?
Yeah, I don't know. That one's tough. Hard to justify that at this moment. Although, he is your bucket getter, right? He's the one that can catch the ball pretty consistently. So if you continue to have those struggles, Lord help us if that is the case for next year. We will all absolutely lose our mind. But if that is the going rate, I don't know. That one seems a little bit tough. I think that they'll dive into the wide receiver room this year, hopefully get a little bit of speed, We'll see what ends up happening with Christian Watson, what actually time he comes back, but he was playing really well up until he got injured. So I don't know. This one seems a bit rich to me, Jordan. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think that's the cost of a wide receiver these days. Anybody's going to pay anybody's going to pay decent money for somebody that they think is a decent wide receiver. I mean, even look at Darius Slayton. I think he got 3 years, $36 million. And, I think that's, somewhere north of that is a contract that you like to keep Christian Watson or Romeo Dobbs in. But yeah, I think that they're probably going to draft a wide receiver or two. And then going into next year, they're still going to have Reed under contract, Wicks under contract. If we draft a guy, they're going to have that person under contract. I think Bull Melton can still be around. So that room may make a transformation from a financial standpoint.
Would you pay Romeo Dobbs that contract at the moment?
Not right now.
Yeah.
I wait until we get about halfway through the season to see if his concussion issues linger and to see if any more of those off the field concerns bubble up.
But
it may be a very similar timeline where we're going into next free agency, into that period where teams can sign their own guys before they hit the tampering period, before we see a move made with either Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs. Likely best case scenario, selecting one to remain on the team.
yeah.
A couple quick other things. Myles Garrett got a huge contract. I know that the Packers, there's a lot of talk. Well, the way to salvage this offseason now is to trade that second round pick and go get Trey Hendrickson. But the thing is, it's going to be the same thing as DK. Give him 5 years and $35 million a season. You know, Myles Garrett just signed that contract at $40 million average annual value. I'm going to have a really hard time giving a 5-year extension at $35 million to a player who's already 30 years old.
Yeah, you and I went back and forth on this, right? And my immediate take is like, does he make us better? Yeah, but for how long? And for that contract, I mean, I totally understand that argument, and it's extraordinarily valid, right? 2 years? 3 years? I would agree to take it a heartbeat, but yes, I know where you're going to go. This is his last contract, plus what Myles Garrett just got. He's going to be breaking the bank. He'll get somewhere around that. So, yeah, it's too rich. There's no way the Packers will do it.
And it's not going to be like one of these other Packers deals where they're like, yeah, we'll give you, $150 million over 4 years, but we're only going to guarantee the first year of that contract. Yeah. He's gonna say, if you're giving me a 4-year extension, 3 of those years are guaranteed, and somebody's going to do it. Just like the Browns
overpay, yes.
Just like the Browns guaranteed much of that $160 million extension that Garrett got. So
I thought it wasn't about the money, though, Myles Garrett. Apparently, Browns threw all the money at him, and he's like, yeah, okay.
You're a rich man. Enjoy football purgatory for 4 more years at least. So Sam Darnold, he's going to be the Seahawks quarterback. Just going to state that. TJ Slayton, we moved on from him as we projected. Yep. Thanks, TJ. He got a nice contract, kind of right in line with what I thought, though. 2 years, $15 million, so $7.5 a season, which was definitely too rich for me for a guy who brings you no pass rush and, obviously a good run defender, but I think we can replace him in the draft with this class.
Easily.
And then thanks, Josh Myers, as well. You've been a great Green Bay Packer. I know we've been critical of your ability at times and in the, blocking game and, the weak link on this offensive line. But, you've been a tremendous, example for what a Green Bay Packer should be. Nobody's ever had a bad thing to say about you. The team, guys like Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur have been very complimentary of your leadership. So I do wish you success wherever you land, with your next team. So that's all we got, folks. So thanks for showing out. I'm sure you're diving into all things free agency and these moves. But just remember, we have more great content from Sounds Good every Wednesday and Saturday. If you enjoyed listening to this, make sure you share with your family, friends, and other Packers fans. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, get those little notifications when they come through, when we have new content. And you can connect with us on X at Sounds Gouda with 3 A's. That's Rob's handle, and mine is Olsen Jord. But until next time, Packers Nation, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.